And we are live. You already know who it is. My name is Mike Kyle, aka the Fantasy Vulture. I have over a decade worth of fantasy football experience and have continuously competed for fantasy championships over the course of the past 6 seasons. Left me at 7 in 2020, but enough of me. I'm here for you on today's episode of the FV Show. We're doing a little bit something different today. We're going to be live streaming all of my Week 7 reactions, so the videos you guys have come to love where I react and recap every single game. We're going to do this in a live stream format for Week 7. I want to try to do something a little bit different. I got Seattle and Arizona on just in front of me, so I get the play-by-play for that. It's also playing in my ears as well. And we got a lot to get to. We're going to cover the Thursday night game because I didn't cover that. So let's just dive right in, shall we? But before we do that, a few quick things from you. First off, smash that subscribe button like a power running back up the middle so you never miss a video from me. We are so close to 100 subscribers, and I would love to hit that in the near future. Also, if you're excited for this live stream and you found any of the information useful, if you could, hit that like button down below like an open receiver downfield, Patrick Mahomes style, except for today. More on that in just a little bit. And last but not least, you can follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture. I'd love to answer all of your start-sit questions, trade offers, waiver wire pickups, and anything else fantasy football related. So I think the way that this is going to work is very similar to what the preview stream is like. So I'll cover every single game, but in between each game, that's when I'll answer questions from chat or just kind of shoot the shit a little bit in that way, and we'll just kind of use that as just as a segue, as a break. We obviously got 1, 2, and 3. We got the waters on deck because I need to start figuring out like vocal warm-ups or something because my voice is on fire after these things. But I do see some people, some familiar names within the chat. Hugo and Troy, hello. Hope you guys are well. I know I've been talking to Hugo a little bit, so it looks like he was doing pretty well with all of his matchups. Troy, hope you were able to secure the victory in yours. I'm on the brink of currently blowing a 45-point lead. Let's start off with that, right? I have Drake, I have Carson, and I have the Rams defense going up against Russ, Robert Woods, and the Rams kicker. So I'm currently only up, I believe, let's verify this. I think I'm up 16. I'm currently up 14.5 right now. So it's not looking pretty. I am very, very scared. But let's go right into the game, shall we? I'm in. I'm ready to roll. All right, Troy, you're up. That's good. Makes me happy. All right, let's roll. We got the first game that we are going to cover is going to be the Thursday night game between the New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles. And obviously, you guys know we got the box score graphics on deck. Let me make sure my music is up just a little bit. There we go. So, the New York Giants lost in a heartbreaking fashion to the Philadelphia Eagles by a final score of 22-21. The Giants fall to 1-6, and the Eagles move up to 2-4-1. The NFC East is still absolutely atrocious. Daniel Jones was 20 of 30 for 187 yards. 92 rushing yards. That number is incorrect. It is not 292. That would be unbelievable. That was a nice little oversight by me there. 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. Wayne Gallman got the majority of the running back snaps in this game. 10 carries, 5 for 5 through the air for 54 total yards. And Sterling Shepard in his first game back off of the IR saw 8 targets, caught 6 of them for 59 yards and a touchdown. Devonta Freeman only had 3 carries. I covered this game on Twitter because honestly I wasn't really in the mood to try and just do a full preview for this game based on the outlook of it. But I said Freeman would be a nice volume play, and evidently he was not. In the past 3 weeks, he was getting carry counts of 16, 16, and 18. Then all of a sudden in this game, he only gets 3. Not entirely sure what was up with that one. But with the Eagles, Carson Wentz continues his dominance. We're going to talk about him in just a moment. Wentz was 25 of 43 for 359 yards, had 3 touchdowns, including a rushing touchdown and an interception. Boston Scott saved his fantasy day with a late touchdown. He finished his night with 12 carries, caught 3 of 5 targets for 92 total yards and a score. Travis Fulgham continues to cement his role in this Eagles offense. For the 3rd straight game, he has seen 10-plus targets. In this game, it was 11. He caught 5 of them for 73 yards. And Greg Ward is very sneakily a top 36 wide receiver now, catching 5 of his 6 targets for 42 yards and a touchdown. So there are a few things that I really want to talk about for this game. The first being, I want to talk about Daniel Jones just a little bit, right? And this game was so crazy for him. He obviously now has the infamous stumble where he breaks 3, rips off a monstrous run that's looking to go towards the end zone. We're looking at a 90-yard run here. And he stumbles, and that is so brutal. First off, because it's obviously super embarrassing. Secondly, they lost the game, not as a direct result of that, but obviously if you leave 6 points up on the board like that, it's not great. And then also the fantasy implications of that, where you lose essentially 8 points, 6 with a rushing touchdown, and then I believe he was tackled on the 15, so you lose about 1.5 there. But Daniel Jones is now entering this category of where the rushing totals are starting to put him into this totally different tier entirely, right? Say what you want about Daniel Jones and what his production and how great how good or bad he actually is. the rushing totals for him are going to give him a consistent fantasy floor, and that's something that we can't ignore. That rhymed accidentally. You know, it's one of the reasons why we like so many of these different quarterbacks. It's why we love Lamar. It's why we love Russ. Obviously, those two are a little bit better passers, but it's still that rushing floor. It's the reason why we like Cam Newton outside of today. Because you get that rushing total as a built-in baseline for him. Like back-to-back games here with 74 rushing yards and 92, and that's going to be able to just make him such a more confident play, because if he does have a game with 2 interceptions or if he fumbles twice, those are automatically going to be negated points because the rushing totals are going to make up for that. So I kind of like Daniel Jones more so as an option now than I have previously, just because he's continuing to run the ball more and more. He's actually the Giants' leading rusher on the season. Speaking of rushers on the Giants, between Wayne Gallman, Devonta Freeman, and Dion Lewis, this really was just an ugly game for them, all things considered. Like I said, Freeman has had the majority of the work since he's got there, and how he only got 3 carries in this game was a bit concerning. I know he did tweak his ankle in this game, which I did forget to mention, but even still, like I believe that was in the third quarter or so. And so the fact that he went the entire first half essentially without getting any of the work, played 20 snaps or 20% of the snaps rather, it just was really truly bizarre. And it's not something that I'm not going to discard it entirely, because they do have this ability and they're willing to go to Wayne Gallman in times where they feel like they have to. But even still, I'm still pretty confident with Devonta Freeman moving forward as long as he is healthy. With the receiving core on this team, now that Sterling Shepard is back and Golden Tate actually scored a touchdown as well, there is no way to decide whose week it's going to be. We are back to my biggest fear with some of these wide receiver cores, and that's spinning the wheel. Is it going to be a Sterling Shepard week? Is it going to be a Golden Tate week? Is it going to be a Darius Slayton week? We don't know. And if you remember this offseason, one of the things that I was saying was that the way that this kind of played out last year was, it was unpredictable. 2, there were sometimes games where it was 2 of the 3, but then they were also never really on the field at the same time either, so it really was just a chaotic mess for them all last year, and I'm not excited about trying to figure out who to start moving forward. As far as the tight end position goes with Evan Ingram, he did see 9 targets, caught 6 of them, but even still, the yardage just still isn't there. I'm very glad that that the targets are there, but if you're still not doing anything with it, then what can you really do? He is yet to break double-digit fantasy points in half-point formats, and it's just really concerning at this point. And I'm really, if I own Evan Ingram at this point, you need to try and get off the ride. Maybe somebody dropped Noah Fant because he was injured. TJ Hawkinson may still be available on the waiver wire. You just need to start looking at other options if you are the Evan Ingram owner, because I don't know how much longer you can try and stay afloat on this ship. Moving over to the Eagles, I really want to talk about Carson Wentz, because for me, Wentz was one of my favorite quarterbacks coming into the season, because I felt like he was the forgotten one. He's also just super talented. We know that he does have the rushing floor built in as well. And I really just thought that this offense would be better. And we saw during the first stint of the season, it was horrific. And Wentz looked utterly atrocious. We all know about the infamous NFL research thread that basically laid Wentz to barren waste, right? So the thing, though, is over the course of the past, honestly, it's been pretty much since week 3. But specifically the past 2 games in particular, he's basically put up 27 fantasy points in back-to-back games. He's looked really great in those as well. He's leading his team to comeback victories in both of them. Obviously, last week versus Baltimore, he fell short, but he did give the Ravens a run for their money later on in the game. And even versus Pittsburgh, he played pretty well as well, and that's a great defense, as we all know. So I'm really excited for Carson Wentz and kind of the resurgence of him this season, because a lot of people got off that ride after weeks 2 or 3. So there's a very, very good chance that he could be on your waiver wire at this point, and that's something that I think is actually going to be a really intriguing prospect, especially with uh, especially with bye weeks happening, injuries to some quarterbacks, and then also just the fact that his schedule is so great. The Eagles' schedule, as we approach, knowing that they are in such a bad division, on top of their out of division schedule, it really is something spectacular. So just for example, okay, they play Dallas next week, then we have their bye, Giants again, Cleveland, Seattle, Green Bay, New Orleans, Arizona, Dallas, Washington. That is a beautiful schedule down the stretch, especially if you're going to need to start racking up some wins. I'd look to see if you can acquire Carson Wentz for the cheap, if you have to, if you need to get a quarterback, but also just take a look to see if he is on your waiver wire, because I think I know for a fact that he is on mine currently. I don't need him because I have Tannehill, and I love the Tannehill-Henry stack that I have. But even still, I would just go take that peek because you never know if you might need to pick him up for one reason or another. Unfortunately, Miles Sanders did not play in this game. I believe it's a hamstring injury. I'm now blanking because that game sounds like it was 4 days ago. Yes, it's a knee injury for Sanders, excuse me. So we did see Boston Scott, and it was rough sledding for Boston Scott so far. For basically 58 minutes in this game, it was rough sledding for Boston Scott before he caught the game-winning touchdown pass, and that was a beautiful throw by Wentz to find Scott on the wheel route. I don't have much to add for that, just because Scott for me is just this plug-and-play option if Miles Sanders is ever out. I kind of expect Sanders to be back next week. I know that there's some speculation that he might miss again, especially with the bye week, so I do think I would pump the brakes just a little bit. You might not have Sanders next week. They might give him it off, and then that way he can have 3 weeks off through the bye week and then return in Week 10 versus the Giants. What else is there really to talk about here? Travis Fulgham, at this point, he's legit. You might have missed out because a lot of people were scrambling for wide receivers at this point in the season. So if you did miss out, it is what it is. I was one of them. I missed out on Fulgham twice. I just didn't want to buy in because how does that happen? How does this undrafted free agent rookie come in and just see target after target after target and just continuously produces in this way? It really is super impressive. But if he did fall through the cracks in your league, be sure to just peep the waiver wire, just see if he's there. And if he's there, you got to scoop him up at this point because he is cementing himself more and more into this offense. Last but not least, the last thing that I want to say here is Zach Ertz, who is placed on IR it was basically a fractured ankle. Essentially, it's a high ankle sprain, but I think there was something fractured within the ankle itself. So it's very similar to the same injury that Zach Ertz has also as well. But this makes things a little bit easier for you if you are the Zach Ertz owner. And what I mean by that is that we've been struggling at this point, trying to figure out if we should start if we should start Ertz, if we should sit him, if we should cut him, pick somebody else up, right? And this just makes that decision so much easier for us. You cut him, you cut bait, and you're going to move on because Ertz won't be valuable for the rest of the season. It's actually worth noting that you should probably look to see if Dallas Goedert is on your waiver wire. Goedert's probably going to come back in Week 10 after the bye week, and we know what his connection with Carson Wentz is like. So if you do need that savior at the tight end position, I think Dallas Goedert is really going to win some people some championships this year. All right, I think that's it for this game. Let's go back to the chat, shall we? All right, so let's see. Troy, you're winning. Freeman's injured. Yep. For waivers, should I drop Jonnu Smith for Corey Davis? No. Should I avoid Keelan Cole? Oh, shit. Buda Baker, pick 6! Go! Oh, no. Oh, he's not a pick 6. Down at the 6. Holy shit. Good for me. Good for me. I'm here for it. Again, I'm facing Russ right now, and I need Chris Carson to get every single touch possible. I need Wilson to throw 4 interceptions. That's major, and also because they're down at the 6, let's get the ball to Kenyon Drake at this point, shall we? All right. Should you avoid Keelan Cole after this week? No. I think you still have to make that. If you make the right moves, I think you still need to pick up Keelan Cole. It was just a down game for him. We're going to talk about Minshew and stuff in just a little bit. And then Rendon Dye says, I just got to trade for Julio Jones. He wants DJ Moore and Justin Jefferson. Should I take it? No. Nope, you don't take it. You don't take it. Your wide receivers are fine. There's no need to go get Julio. Not at all. With Justin Jefferson playing the way that he is, DJ Moore coming back around, and you have Galladay and Diggs, nope, you keep your depth. You keep your depth every single day because you don't know what's going to happen. If next week DJ Moore goes out and blows out his ACL, you're going to need all three of those wide receivers. All right, let's go to the next game here. I got these pop-ups. And Drake gets stuffed at the 3. Lovely. All right, before we even go, I want to stay on. I need to stay on this game so I can see what's going on. What's my next game? Up next, we're going to talk about the Browns and the Bengals. DK Metcalf is a fucking freak, dude. He is wild. Imagine being chased down by DK Metcalf. Oh, that's terrifying. Hand the ball off. Oh my god. And Drake gets stuffed at the 1.5. Bad times ahead. Bad times ahead. All right, we got one more play. Sorry, I'm being quiet here. I'm focusing. This is basically what happens when I watch games. So we got 3rd and goal. Like, that's the other thing too. I'm sure you guys are probably ahead of me at some point. I don't know how this is gonna work entirely. With you guys probably being ahead because I'm streaming it, so I'm always naturally behind. But then the stream is also behind, so maybe it equals out. Oh, they're gonna try and rush. That was brutal. Brutal. Okay, let's go to the next game. And I want to do this. All right, sorry. All right. So the next game that we're going to talk about is the Cleveland Browns taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. And let's just dive right into the box score, shall we? The Browns defeat the Bengals by a final score of 37-34. Cleveland moves to 5-2 on the year, and Cincinnati drops to 1-5-1. Baker Mayfield was 22 of 28 for 297 yards, 5 touchdowns, and an interception. Kareem Hunt had 18 carries, caught 3 of 4 targets for 102 total yards and 1 touchdown. And Odell Beckham left the game in the first quarter trying to make a tackle after Baker Mayfield's interception. And the reports are not looking good. It appears to be a season-ending injury, although we don't know what the specific injury actually is. As far as the Bengals go, Joe Burrow, oh my God. I don't know, and we're going to talk about the difference between Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert in a little bit, but basically, these two guys are for real. Burrow, 35 of 47 for 406 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 turnovers. Burrow looks spectacular in this game. Gio Bernard filling in for Joe Mixon, who did not play in this game due to his injury. Mixon's going to be week to week, but Bernard stepped up. 13 carries, caught 5 of 5 through the air. Also had 96 total yards and a touchdown. Tyler Boyd, 13 targets, caught 11 for 101 yards and a score. And T. Higgins, what's the right word here? I was gonna say the resurgence, but that's not the word. T. Higgins, the dominance continues here. 5 targets, 5 receptions for 71 yards and a touchdown. And it's also important to note that Joe Burrow has 5 games of 300 plus passing yards as a rookie. 5 out of 7. He is absolutely cooking right now, and he's a guy that needs to be considered to be a weekly start every single week because they are just letting him throw the ball like something I've never seen before, right? We're so used to rookies being put on a leash and being so conservative and just conservative coaching and play calling. No. That's not even close to what we're happening and what we're seeing here in Cincinnati. Where, again, I'm just going to go through the pass attempts one more time. I feel like I do this after every single recap, okay? 36, 61, 44, 36, 30, 39, 47. They are letting Joey Buckets just gunsling all over the place, and it makes me so happy because I love this Bengals offense for that reason. So, let's just talk about a few things. The biggest storyline here is obviously Odell and that season-ending injury. Very similar to that Zach Ertz injury. It's kind of along the same line to where it makes the decision for Odell owners a little bit easier because you don't have to decide every single week if you have to play him or not. Obviously, we don't root for injuries around here or anything like that, but to have that decision made a bit easier for us, sadly through an injury, it kind of does relieve some sort of stress for our week-to-week fantasy lineup decisions. If you noticed with the Browns, I only covered Baker and Kareem Hunt, and the reason why was because for the box score, I essentially only cover fantasy relevant players in there. That's kind of the main focus of it. So for example, right, Rashard Higgins, nobody was starting him, and nobody was also starting Donovan Peoples-Jones, the rookie out of Michigan. So let's talk about those two players right now. Rashard Higgins has been such a consistent consistent wide receiver option in real life when he gets the opportunity. He always has been, especially for the Browns. But the issue is when you have Odell and when you have Jarvis Landry, when the passing volume has always been traditionally lower, he never has had the full opportunity to cement himself within the offense. But whenever he's gotten on the field, he's been spectacular. Now that Odell is expected to be out for the season, I think that Rashard Higgins is somebody that you seriously have to look at picking up for your team. He had 6 targets, caught all 6 for 110 yards. It's not the first time that he's done something like this as well. Also had a few end zone targets too. So I am really excited for Rashard Higgins going forward because I've seen the talent in person multiple times, and he really is just a spectacular wide receiver, one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL. And then Donovan Peoples-Jones, rookie out of Michigan, a guy who fell into the 6th round of the NFL draft. A lot of people were expecting him to go higher. He did not because of the amount of depth that the wide receiver position had in this draft class. But Peoples-Jones, 3 targets, 3 receptions for 56 yards and a score. Also caught the game-winning touchdown in this game. So basically, you got some options here. And how viable they're going to be long-term, I'm not sure. But I would definitely try and take the shot on Higgins if you have the room to do so on your team. Harrison Bryant stepping in for the sick Austin Hooper, what's it called when you have your appendix removed? I'm not even going to try and say that. No, I'm going to try and say it. That is a tongue twister waiting to happen. Anyways, Harrison Bryant filling in for Austin Hooper. Caught 4 or 5 targets for 2 touchdowns. He played really well in this game. David Njoku also got in the end zone as well. The tight ends were just feasting for the Browns. I don't know if Hooper's going to miss next week as well. But if he does, Harrison Bryant would be a great add. Who do they take on next week? Let's take a look. Oh, they play Vegas next week. Oh, yeah, for sure. Harrison Bryant, grab him if you have to. He is a great streaming option for the tight end position next week versus Las Vegas. Anything else I need to touch on here? I don't think so. I'm still not confident with starting Baker Mayfield in my lineup. It was just a really great game by him, all things considered, though, so hats off to him. Joe Burrow continues to dominate, as I've mentioned, 5 out of 7 games with 300-plus passing yards. It's been truly amazing to watch him play and ball out the way that he has. Gio Bernard, filling in for Joe Mixon, finishes with 18 fantasy points. That is a beautiful spot start if you were able to pick up Gio and plug him into your lineup if you were the Mixon owner. So not much to add here. If you had got Gio, you might have to play him next week, depending on what Mixon's health is like. Going over to the wide receiver core, again, this is Boyd and this is Higgins, like it's 1 and 2, and they just do so many different things, right? They utilize Tyler Boyd all over the field, and Higgins really is just this big play, big body receiver. And Higgins had a really slow start. He was being pretty much shadowed by Denzel Ward, one of the best young corners in the NFL. And then Higgins was able to break loose for a late game touchdown, which was really nice, and he really did save your fantasy day in that way. But I want to talk about A.J. Green for a second here, because we pronounced A.J. Green dead. But in the past 2 games now, he's had 11 targets and he's had 7 targets, 8 receptions, 7 receptions, 96 yards, and 82. The snap percentage is still really high at 78 and 86. But the big difference here is how the two. It's kind of like it's been basically a tale of two halves for AJ Green. And what I mean by that is when they started out the season, they were basically still using him as the old AJ Green. Have him go deep, have him make contested catches, and that's just not who he is anymore. So what they've done the past 2 weeks is they've really just changed his role. They've made him into a possession receiver, limiting the depth of target and thrown in his direction, and just making the easy routes and the easy throws for him. And what it's done, it's really made him more viable now for fantasy as well. It's made him more productive as a player in real life, and also more relevant for fantasy. I saw a theory that they're doing this to increase his trade value and just get him more involved so they can field some offers. But even still, if you held on to AJ Green, this new role and this new I guess format for him, it really is interesting. It's an interesting way to take this once dominant wide receiver and then transition him into the later years into his career. So I'm actually really intrigued for AJ Green going forward. If he's on my waiver wire and I'm desperate at wide receiver, at this point it might be worth the shot on. But it is just something I'm really trying to keep an eye on just to see if this is a trend that continues to happen. Because with those target totals and with the way that he's being used in the offense, I mean, fantasy relevance is coming for AJ Green. Anything else here? I don't think so. Honestly, this game was high scoring. It was fun. It was a blast. I loved watching it. And both of these teams always have the ability to drop 35 points on any given night. That's not Chris Carson. That's Carlos Hyde. Oh, my God. I hope he's not into the end zone for a touchdown. What is happening? Did I just get vultured? There's no way I just got a Oh my God. I just got vultured. I just got vultured. I just got vultured. What is happening? All right, that's no fun. That's not a fun way to end this recap. Getting vultured by Carlos Hyde when you need Chris Carson to find his way into the end zone. All right, let's move on to the next game, shall we? Before we do that, let's take a look at this. Traded Odell and cut for Gibson last week. It's a good deal at this point now that Odell is gone. Yeah, I hear you go. It's so dumb. All right, let's go to game 2 or game 3 now at this point. Oh, I've been live for 33 minutes at this point. We're gonna have to kind of pick this up just a little bit. My next game is going to be Pittsburgh and Tennessee. There we go. Cool. All right, let's roll with this next game, shall we? The next game that we're going to talk about is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Tennessee Titans, and which was truly one of the best games of Week 7. And as always, let's just dive into the box score. The Steelers remain undefeated by defeating the previously undefeated Titans by a final score of 27-24. The Steelers improved to 6-0, and the Titans suffered their first loss of the season, falling to 5-1. Ben Roethlisberger played decently well in this game. Unfortunately, he did have 3 interceptions, which were very, very costly. He was 32 of 49 for 268 yards and 2 touchdowns outside of those 3 picks. James Conner gets the workload yet again. He is just locked in to be a top 15 running back rest of season. He is so good when he's always on the field. 20 carries, 82 yards, caught 3 of 5 targets for 29 yards. Deontay Johnson makes his way back into the lineup after a series of injuries. 15 targets, 9 receptions, 80 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He is seeing a target share of 30%. It is unbelievable. Deontay Johnson is wide receiver 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Juju Smith-Schuster came back to life. Of course, after I bitch him out all last week. Juju, 14 targets, 9 receptions for 85 yards. And Chase Claypool's low volume continues. You only saw 1 target. If you guys recall, this was the issue that I've always had with Chase Claypool throughout the season. It was 3 targets and 2 targets and 4 targets. It's just not enough. It is not enough to be sustainable right now. With Tennessee, Ryan Tannehill struggled early on, found his groove in the second half, and put together a pretty good performance. 18 of 30 for 220 yards and 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry finds his way to the end zone on 20 carries and picks up 75 yards. And A.J. Brown, welcome back for the 3rd straight week after missing the beginning stint of the season due to his knee injury. Brown, 8 targets, 6 receptions for 153 yards and a touchdown. It's actually really important to note, though, for this game, too, that in the first half, the Pittsburgh Steelers controlled the ball for 21 minutes. The Titans only had the ball for 3 minutes in the first half. That was the game plan for the Steelers coming out. They wanted to take the ball out of the hands of Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. But A.J. Brown, in his last 3 games since coming back from that knee injury, 24 targets, 18 receptions, 293 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He is on fire. And this was everything that I thought A.J. Brown was going to be this season. We saw him break out towards the end of 2019, and the only thing that was missing was the volume. And it was one of the things that really didn't make sense, where he was being so productive on such low volume, and that he was going to take that step forward this year to where the volume was going to match the production. And that's what we're seeing so far during the early part of the 2020 season when he's been on the field. And it makes me super happy because it shows me that I made the right decision by trading DK for A.J. Brown and Zach Moss, because that was the whole theory, right? The entire process behind that deal was I see DK and A.J. at the exact same spot, pretty much dynasty wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 going forward, and then I was going to take on the additional asset in Zach Moss because I'm obviously the running back king, if you guys know anything about me. But in this game in particular, just a few things that I really want to talk about here is, number 1, just Deontay Johnson. If you bought low on Deontay Johnson battling through the injuries, you struck gold. He is so damn good. And yes, he did tweak his ankle again. He tweeted that it'll be okay. But Deontay Johnson, not only the snaps, but the targets. That's really the big thing here. The targets in the 3 main games that he's played, 10, 13, and 15. He's just being looked at left, right, and center, and Big Ben is treating him as wide receiver 1 for this team. As much as we all love Chase Claypool, and as much as we're all on Juju, Deontay Johnson is what this offense revolves around, and it's so evident when he is on the field. Juju coming back and seeing 14 targets, that was honestly a kick in the nuts for me. But he just seeing the work that he was getting was actually really encouraging. He once again led the team in routes run. And it's one of those things where you got to pick a side on what Juju Smith-Schuster actually is. At this point, I don't know if there's a right or a wrong, but you're going to have to make that line in the sand and really try and figure out what you have in Juju, because half of the numbers say one thing and the other half say another, and what the reality is it's somewhere in the middle. I'm not sure. I admittedly admit that I undersold him. I should have tried to package him into a deal to upgrade at wide receiver instead of taking the hit. Now, obviously, getting Michael Piron, my baby boy, back in that deal wasn't too bad for me. We'll talk about him in just a moment. But ultimately, you got to figure out what your line in the sand is for Juju Smith-Schuster and what you believe and what you don't. And then again, just with Chase Claypool, final note here for the Steelers, just the targets outside of one game, that game versus the Eagles, they've been low. They've been low, and it doesn't give you, it can't give you confidence to put him into your lineup on a week-to-week basis. With Chase Claypool, you're looking for the big play. He is nothing more than that to me as currently stands. He's in the same category as a Deshaun Jackson, as a Henry Ruggs, as a Mecole Hardman, as a Hollywood Brown. Just a guy who you're looking for. If you plug him into your lineup, you need that big play to hit, or else you're going to be left disappointed. Moving over to the Titans, Ryan Tannehill continues to be an excellent start. Again, he looked really bad early on in this game, but then he also just didn't have the ball. Again, Pittsburgh's game plan coming in was to just run the clock and make this as close of and basically just win the time of possession battle. Because if they were to do that, they were going to win it. Obviously, taking the ball away from Derrick Henry is going to be a good thing, right? But Tannehill came through really in the second half and put together a fine game. 220 yards and 2 touchdowns is nothing to be ashamed of by any means. And then Derrick Henry, 20 carries still. The volume was there. Just with this Pittsburgh Steelers defensive front, it is tough to get going. We see that obviously Miles Sanders struggled. Besides that monster touchdown run that he had, Saquon Barkley was shut down. They really are just great at stopping the run. And Derrick Henry was bottled up before he scored the late game touchdown, which was one of the things that really did save your fantasy day. A.J. Brown, just again, fucking superstar. You had a window to buy A.J. Brown when he was hurt. If you didn't, kudos to you. I'm currently trying to figure out a way if I can still do it. I know that's in my other league, that is. I need a stud wide receiver for my team, I think, to take it to the next level, and I got some assets to trade. So I'm going to try and acquire A.J. Brown probably this week because he's legit and he's so fucking good. He really, really is. Corey Davis gets in the end zone here. He had a pretty fine game. Six receptions for 35 yards and a score. And then Jonnu Smith, just disappointing. I'm not gonna drop Jonnu Smith. I'm not gonna freak out about it. Nothing like that. Just a rough week for him. None of the tight ends really had a great week, all things considered, outside of honestly David Njoku, Harrison Bryant. At least those that come off the top of my head. T.J. Hawkins is another. But Jonnu Smith, it is what it is. Just a dud game. Throw it out. Flush it on to the next week. He's still going to be in your lineup moving forward. Not much else to say about this game. I think I pretty much covered everything. So let's move on to the next game. All right. Anything else here? Let's keep going. What else do we got? Oh, we got Dallas and Washington next. Did Christian Kirk just score a touchdown? Is that what I saw out of the corner of my eye? All right, I need to check my score real quick. What's the update? It's got to be ugly. Oh yeah, it's brutal. This shit is brutal. I can't believe it. I really can't believe it. I'm up 11. I am up 11. This is so disgusting. What a choke job. Alright, let's keep going. The next game that we're going to talk about is going to be the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Washington football team. And this game was all Washington from start to finish. Washington defeats Dallas by a final score of 25-3. Both teams are now 2-5 in the very competitive NFC East. Andy Dalton took a major hit, a big blow to the head in this game, but when he was on the field, he was not great. 9 of 19 for 75 yards and an interception. Ezekiel Elliott played poorly as well. 12 carries, 45 yards, caught one pass for 6 yards. A bust game for him. Amari Cooper was really the only Dallas Cowboy to show up. Caught all 7 targets for 80 yards. And it might be time to panic for all of the Dallas Cowboys. More on that in just a moment. But with the Washington football team, Kyle Allen played pretty well in this game, further proving the point that the Dallas Cowboy defense is utterly atrocious. Allen, 15 of 25 for 194 yards and 2 touchdowns. And guess what? If you started Antonio Gibson and you waited through the storm of the past 2 weeks, it paid off for you. 20 carries, 128 yards, and 1 touchdown. Gibson balled out in this game. He was featured early and often throughout this contest. Terry McLaurin, 11 targets, 7 receptions for 90 yards, and a score. He's so fucking good. He really, really is. He's one of the great young wide receivers in the NFL. And then Logan Thomas, welcome back, my friend. 4 targets, 4 receptions for 60 yards, and a score. Logan Thomas was a guy who I thought you could probably stream this week. If you did, it paid off for you in this matchup. Also important to note that Antonio Gibson only played 47% of snaps yet again and was by far and away the most productive running back for Washington. So we got a few things to talk about here. Let me pull up this box score real quick one more time. So the big thing here is with the Dallas Cowboys is what do you do, right? With Andy Dalton being concussed, he looked bad before that. He was bad last week. And then with Ben DiNucci, that's what it is, Ben DiNucci, quarterback, 7th round draft pick out of James Madison. Like, what are you supposed to do with these Dallas Cowboys weapons? First off, you have to start Zeke still. You're not going away from it. You're not like that. You just can't. You just can't do it. He's too good. He's too talented to move away from. This was just a dud game from him. It happens from time to time. But I still think that Ezekiel Elliott is probably the most consistent fantasy option you can have at the running back position. You got to continue to start Zeke going forward. But with Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, again, Michael Gallup was dead now in this game. I believe he only had 2 targets, didn't catch a pass. CeeDee Lamb caught, I think it was 1 pass. CeeDee Lamb had 1 carry for 1 yard, had 5 targets, and did not haul in a reception. Dalton Schultz had 2 catches for 22 yards. I don't know what you can do here now at this point. We already moved these Dallas Cowboys weapons a step down with Andy Dalton, and if you got Ben DiNucci coming in, I mean, shit. I'm not saying they're unplayable, but at this point, you would have to seriously consider all of your options as you are constructing your lineup. Who do they take on next week? Next week, they take on Philadelphia, so that's something interesting to note. That's not a bad matchup, all things considered. We'll see what Andy Dalton's status is going to be going forward, but I do expect him to probably miss that game because he got absolutely rocked, right? Oh, my God. And Tyler Lockett just caught a 40-yard touchdown. Your man's just blew a 40-point lead. Your man's just blew a 40-point lead. Reconnection successful. Am I up? All right, we're up. We're good. Man. All right, let's keep going. Going over to Washington, I don't have much to say about Dallas here. So, with Washington, the big story here, like we know you're probably starting Terry McLaurin every single week. Logan Thomas is what he is. He's a great streaming option if you have to. But we need to still continue to talk about the fucking running backs on this team. Because it, again, is inexcusable for Antonio Gibson to only be getting 47% of snaps when he is literally averaging 6 yards a carry. He's done it multiple times. He's got 4 yards carry, 4.2, 5.4. In this game, 6.4. Is able to get into the end zone. He looks so good when he is on the field. And the fact that they just haven't committed to him yet. The very first play of this game, Peyton Barber got the first snap. Got the first rush attempt. What are we doing? Why? In what world has Antonio Gibson not cemented his role fully on this team? Why do they just refuse to give him all the work? He's been so good so early on. He absolutely deserves it. J.D. McKissic has been fine. Nothing spectacular there. But you just watch what Antonio Gibson does every single week. And it is just so impressive. And I was like, hey, I'm not confident starting Antonio Gibson this week. Yes, the matchup versus Dallas is great, but if we don't know what he's going to get, and he really is only viable if he gets in the end zone, direct quote that I said from my preview stream, how can you start him with confidence? And I said the only reason why I'm starting him is because I had Joe Mixon out with an injury. Luckily, it turned into fantasy points for me. But it was something that I wasn't necessarily confident in until the game started and he started carving up the Cowboys defense early on. So I still have a lot of concerns with Antonio Gibson. He's so talented. We've seen the talent time and time again this season. But how can we commit to him if the coaching staff hasn't commit to him? It's just one of the things that I'm super concerned about going forward because you're going to get stinged more often than not now at this point. If you're able... if you continue to put him in your lineup, it's just one of those things where if that touchdown doesn't come, what is Antonio Gibson going to be for your fantasy team? I'm really trying to figure out what that answer is going to be. Let's move on to the next game now, and that is going to be the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. The Bills came from behind after the Jets stormed up pretty early. The Bills defeat the Jets by a final score of 18-10. It was all field goals for Buffalo. Buffalo, they improved to 5-2 on the year, and the Jets fall to 0-7. Josh Allen, 30 of 43 for 307 yards and 61 rushing yards. Also had a fumble. Cole Beasley was the best receiver on the field, hauled in 11 of 12 targets for 112 yards. Stephon Diggs continued to do his thing, catching 6 of 11 for 48 yards. And this backfield with Zach Moss back from that toe injury looks to be unplayable. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But with the New York Jets, Sam Darnold looked good to start, and things quickly fell off the rails later on. He was 12 of 23 for 120 yards and 2 interceptions. But on the bright side, LaMichael Pirine continues to see an increase in snaps. Last week it was 58. This week it's 67. Pirine, 11 carries, 39 yards, caught 2 of 3 passes for 16 yards, and also scored his first career touchdown in the NFL. Let's take this up another notch. You want to hear about another positive with the New York Jets? Denzel Mims, second-round draft pick wide receiver out of Baylor, one of my favorite draft prospects in this class. He makes his debut coming off of the IR with that hamstring injury. 7 targets, 4 receptions for 42 yards. He was the leading receiver for this team. And honestly, these are some of the things that we have to take away from the Jets. It's been such a grind and such a hellstorm to try and tolerate, right, so far during the early parts of this season. So to be able to find a few silver linings with this team makes me very happy, and also the fact that I own both these players in Dynasty warms my heart in ways you cannot imagine. But I want to talk about the Bills for a second. There's nothing to talk about here as far as Stephon Diggs or Josh Allen or Cole Beasley even. These are just there's something to say about Cole Beasley. One, put some respect on his name. He helped me win a championship in PPR formats last year. You need to consider if you are in a full point PPR league, Cole Beasley needs to be on your roster because he does this very often where he just gets peppered with targets. He has great hands and he's just able to kind of rack up yards as well. I love starting him as a flex option in full point PPR leagues because that's when he's the most valuable. But there's nothing to add about Allen or Diggs. You're fine with those two. I want to talk about this running back. I want to talk about this running back committee for just a moment, though. Zach Moss had 7 carries for 47 yards. Also caught all 3 of his targets for 25 yards. He played 46% of the snaps. Devin Singletary had 8 carries for 29 yards, had 5 targets, caught 2 of them for 18 yards. I believe he had 55% of the snaps, 53. So, unfortunately, we are again put in this position where this backfield is unplayable. We are just reaching points now where no matter what is happening to some of these backfields, we can't predict it, and that makes it impossible to start anybody here with confidence as currently stands. Their work is nearly identical, and because it's divided pretty much down the middle, and they're only getting handfuls of opportunities apiece, there's no way you can start anybody here with confidence, and that does make me very upset because I was high on Zach Moss coming into this season, and I thought there was a chance that he could overtake Devin Singletary. Then Moss got injured, and Devin Singletary played well in the absence of Moss. But now that it's literally split 50-50 and no one is standing out above the other, it makes these two guys essentially unplayable. Moving over to the Jets, though, let's talk about La'Mical Pirine. The only thing that's holding Pirine back now at this moment, as you saw in that graphic, he played 67% of snaps in this game. The only thing that's holding him back now is the fact that he's still getting the same amount of carries as Frank Gore. And here's what I mean by that, right? So Pirine is on the field more often, but if you look at carry counts, they are identical. Pirine had 11 carries. Frank Gore had 11 carries. In fact, Gore had a better rushing game than Pirine. Gore had 11 carries for 60 yards. Pirine had 11 carries for 39 yards. Obviously, getting into the end zone is going to be the thing that bumps up Pirine going forward. And also, he was involved in the passing game, which is nice because he did show that ability in college, but he wasn't really featured in that way. But he was okay in that role. But just seeing this commitment to Pirine, even if it is just the snaps now at this point, it really is encouraging. What it turns into, I don't know. Obviously, in Dynasty, he's more valuable than he is in redraft leagues, but he is just something to keep an eye on in redraft, because I think he's a guy that can fly under the radar in your waiver wire for now. If you have the spot to pick him up early, by all means, go ahead and do so. But if you want to take that next week or so and just wait and see what fully happens with him, and as he cements himself more and more into that role, maybe you currently don't have the roster spot for him at this current moment in time, then maybe you can wait and see and just let him continue to slide under the radar. Because honestly, I don't know how many people actually know his name if you aren't super deep into fantasy football. Last note here, Denzel Mims. This makes me so happy. It does. If you have watched any of my Dynasty previews during this offseason, if you watched my New York Jets preview this offseason, I raved about Denzel Mims. He is 6'3", 207. When you look at his metrics compared to Calvin Johnson, they are almost identical, which is fucking insane. I know the hot conversation now is DK Metcalf's the next Calvin Johnson. No. That may be true to a degree. But if you want to look number by number, Denzel Mims is almost an exact replication of him. It's quite scary, in all honesty. So I love Denzel Mims for that reason. I also know that Denzel Mims was the guy in Baylor. He had 116 targets in multiple seasons, so he knows how to handle the workload. He had 2,000-yard seasons in his college career. He also had seasons of 8 touchdowns, and 12. So this is a guy who has experience being the number one option on a team that desperately needs one. After the draft, he said he wanted to become Sam Darnold's best friend. Like, there were so many things going right for Denzel Mims. I remember when he got drafted, I audibly cheered because he was so talented and I needed him to fall to a spot where he can step in and be the guy. Obviously, having this offseason the way it was, not getting any training camp reps, or limited training camp reps because of that hamstring injury, and no preseason, made it a little bit uncomfortable to hold on to him in Dynasty just because you didn't know what you were going to have in him. Obviously, you weren't going to cut him, but to see him come through in this way, lead the team in targets, lead the team in receptions and in yards in his first NFL game, oh yeah, sign me up for Denzel Mims for the rest of the season. He might be the one bright spot, the one true bright spot. As much as we love Michael Pirine here, Mims just has the great opportunity in front of him to really cement himself as this team's top option. With Jamison Crowder out with that groin injury, the return of Rashad Perriman, who didn't play all too great today, all things considered, Mims, and just the fact that Mims is the future of this team, I'm really excited for him going forward. But that's it. That's all I have for this game between the Bills and the Jets. I see some chats going up here. We got James Martin. So Colts or Chiefs defense for the rest of season. Colts, and the reason why is because that division is worse. You play Tennessee, you play Jacksonville, and you play Houston. And I would rather have the Colts defense just based off pure scheduling. Because with the Chiefs, you're going to play Denver, you're then playing the Chargers, and you're playing the Raiders, and those teams can just put up points on a whim very, very easily. So I'd rather have the Colts defense rest of season. Yeah, Russ is cooking, Troy. I'm not happy about it. I don't appreciate this. Is this the second time that I've blown a lead to my opponent this year? I think it might be. This is so dumb. I forgot I was muted. Sorry. I was basically just saying fun, fun, fun. Chris Carson's hurt. Fuck this. Alright, let's keep going. Honestly, do I even want to watch the rest of this game? I really don't. I have no reason to watch it right now. It's halftime anyway. Alright, I'm closing this out. Give me a sec. I gotta slide some things over here. Alright. Let's keep rolling. What's the next game that we got on the docket? We got Carolina. Whoops. We got Carolina and New Orleans. Okay. Fun game. Let's keep going here. Okay. The next game that we're going to talk about is going to be the Carolina Panthers taking on the New Orleans Saints, and which was actually a really fun game from Week 7. The Saints defeat the Panthers by a final score of 27-24. New Orleans improves to 4-2, and the Panthers drop to 3-4. Teddy Bridgewater continues to play pretty well, 23 of 38 for 254 yards and 2 touchdowns. DJ Moore continues to thrive. A lot of people were struggling and they were worried about DJ Moore earlier in the season. I told you to stay the course because DJ Moore is an excellent wide receiver in the NFL. He caught 4 of 5 targets for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns. He has now 3 straight games of 90-plus yards. Robbie Anderson continues to do his thing. He caught 6 of 8 targets for 74 yards. And Curtis Samuel found his way into the end zone for the first time this season. He caught all 6 of his targets for 48 yards and a score. On the other side with New Orleans, Drew Brees, 36 attempts, 29 completions, 287 yards, 3 touchdowns, including a rushing score and a fumble. Alvin Kamara did not find his way into the end zone, but my goodness, can you really complain with what he did for you today? 14 carries, caught all 8 of his targets for 148 total yards. Kamara was spectacular in this game. And lastly, Jared Cook caught 3 of 4 targets for 32 yards and a touchdown. And the Saints were without Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders in this game. Thomas battling that hamstring injury, and Emmanuel Sanders was placed on the COVID reserve list. He unfortunately did catch COVID-19, so prayers up to Emmanuel Sanders as he battles this virus. But let's talk about this game real quick. There's not a whole lot to discuss, all things considered here. Bridgewater, Teddy, my man, does it yet again. I love Bridgewater as a streaming option just time and time again. It just makes so much sense. They're letting him throw the ball a lot. He has the weapons to succeed, whether it is Mike Davis, Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, even Curtis Samuel, who's really been improving over the course of the season. Bridgewater just has the weapons. He has the offense to continue to put up consistent fantasy points, and he really is an intriguing option for me going forward. I don't think I would start him consistently, but you can definitely make the argument based upon what I just said that you can with confidence. It really just does make a lot of sense for him. Mike Davis busted for you this week. It was bound to happen, right? Mike Davis was bound to come back down to earth eventually. Just so happened to be this game, which was a bummer. Because the Saints defense just in general has not been great, and so he did have an opportunity here, but unfortunately he just didn't get it done. And then moving over to the wide receivers, like DJ Moore, he's so good. He's so good. And obviously the argument for against Moore in this game was that he had a 72-yard touchdown, and that's where the majority of his work and his production came from on the day, yes, sure, go ahead, you can make that argument. But we've seen this now time and time again where DJ Moore just rips off big plays. It's kind of just what he does. He's one of the most underrated yak kings in the NFL. He just slithers through defenses and finds holes in them to really just be productive, and it's how he makes his money in the NFL. Robbie Anderson continues to be a great deep threat option and just continues to see the majority of the work, really just being that number one option for this team. But to me, I really view these two guys as 1A, 1B. They both can be productive. We've seen that now multiple times this season, and I'm in on both of them for the rest of the season. Moving over to the Saints, not a whole lot of things to add here, all things considered. Breeze had a great game. Kamara had a great game per usual. But without Emmanuel Sanders and without Michael Thomas, the question really would become, who the hell would step up for the Saints in this game? And the answer was Deontay Harris, and it was also Marquez Callaway. Who? I don't know who Marquez Callaway is. I know who Deontay Harris is because he's been their kick returner for as long as I can remember. And he's also just kind of like this gadget guy, right? But Marquez Callaway? What? 10 targets, 8 receptions for 75 yards, right? One of the things I was just talking about with my Browns recap was that I don't include guys in the box score who are fantasy relevant, who you would be starting on a week in, week out basis, right? Because I need to make it relevant to the content. But the fact that he balled out in this way, I'm now kind of encouraged going forward, right? Marquez Callaway is what Traquan Smith was supposed to be. And it took Marquez Callaway one game to do it. I don't know. I'm not going to buy into Callaway going forward, but I'm just very confused. Rookie out of Tennessee. Just something to note, I think, right? Like, they have Chicago next week, then Tampa, then San Francisco. I expect Michael Thomas to come back versus Tampa. I think he's going to miss next week versus Chicago. And as far as Emmanuel Sanders and COVID, who knows how long he's going to miss. I don't know if he's symptomatic or asymptomatic. And the NFL PA protocols, depending on which one you are, will give you a new timetable as to when you can return. Traquan Smith was fine. 4 targets, 4 receptions for 54 yards. But honestly, like, are you confident starting any of these guys next week if you had to against a very good Chicago Bears defense? I personally am not. It was a great game versus Carolina Panthers defense, which has been pretty good against the pass, all things considered. But at the end of the day, I think this really was just like I really think that this was a one-hit wonder for them. Glad it happened. Super happy for them, but I don't think it's going to be fantasy relevant for you going forward. But I think that's it for this game, all things considered. Like, cut and dry, pretty easy. These pieces that played well, I don't think there's going to be much impact for them going forward the rest of the way. What else are we going? All right, let's go back to the chat here. DK with the chase, down to say a pick assist, and Russ hasn't rewarded him. Russ playing lame today. No targets for DK. You sound like a salty DK Metcalf owner, and I can tell you right now, Russell Wilson is playing fantastic. Russell Wilson at halftime has currently 22 fantasy points, and I am currently only up 2 points because of it. Russell Wilson is playing lights out football right now. DK's targets are going to come. Let's not worry about that. And saying that Russ is playing lame, no. Russ is playing utterly spectacular, like I knew he would. There is not a single player in the NFL who I am more terrified to face in fantasy football than Russell Wilson. Because every single time I play him, that motherfucker goes for 36 points. It is so annoying, so frustrating, and the one year that I had him was the one year where he was bad for fantasy. And that makes it all the worse. So I'm disappointed right now. I'm very upset. I'm tilting. You guys can't really see it. But I'm super upset because your man, as I've said already, just blew a 45-point lead or is currently in the process of doing so. Send help. Pour one out for me, please. What's the next game that we got to cover here? Oh, we're going to talk about Green Bay and Houston. Oh, boy. That's going to be a fun one. We're going to talk about Green Bay and Houston. How many of these do I have left? That's actually an interesting question here. We got Green Bay, Houston. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we're flying through these right now, which is nice. I really do like this format. I like being able to stream with you guys and look at the chat, see what you guys are up to this week. If you guys are winning, losing, the things you guys need, right? Like Pineapple Cook is just salty right now because DK isn't being targeted, and I'm sure he probably needs him to have a big game right now versus a decent Arizona Cardinals secondary. So I get the tilt. I get the tilt. Look, I have Chris Carson, who left the game with a foot injury. I have Kenyon Drake, who's done absolutely nothing for me right now. And obviously blowing a 40-point lead to my rival in this league nonetheless is it's a real fun time for me right now. But let's keep going here. We got the Packers and the Texans. One of the better. I want to restart this actually. We got the. Whoa! I did not want to restart that. So we got the Green Bay Packers taking on the Houston Texans, and this game was pretty much all Packers until garbage time took place. Aaron Rodgers balled out, completing 23 of 34 passes for 283 yards and 4 touchdowns, leading the Packers to a victory with a final score of 35-20. Green Bay improves to 5-1, and Houston falls to 1-6. Jamal Williams, with no Aaron Jones, starred out 19 carries, 4 receptions for 114 total yards and a touchdown. But the big story here is Davante Adams. I got Davante Adams today, and what I mean by that is he dropped a bomb on my head. 16 targets, 13 receptions, 196 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. Davante Adams is on pace for 161 targets. Michael Thomas last year had 155. On the other side, with the Texans, Deshaun Watson, 29 completions, 39 pass attempts for 300 yards, 38 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. David Johnson continues to be one of my favorite running back plays in fantasy football. 14 carries, 4 receptions for 84 yards and a touchdown. Will Fuller gets it in the end zone in garbage time, hauls in 3 receptions for 35 yards, and Brandon Cook continues his dominance over the course of the past 3 games. 7 receptions, 9 targets for 60 yards, and a score. But let's talk about this real quick. With the Packers, not a whole lot here that I really need to say. The big thing here is Davante Adams, right? I don't know if people fully understand the scope of how good Davante Adams is. And what I mean by that is when we talk about the game's best wide receivers in the NFL, how often is Davante Adams really mentioned in that list? Because when I think of that conversation, the names that come to my mind are Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, Tyreek Hill gets thrown in there. But how many guys plant their flag on Davante Adams being wide receiver 1? This offseason, one of the things I was considering was making Davante Adams my wide receiver 1 in the pre-draft process. Because when you look at what he does, the targets he gets, his production, it is spectacular. Obviously, he's been injured throughout the course of the season, leaving week 2 with that injury, missing the next 2 games and the bye week, so he hasn't really been readily available for your fantasy team. But just to kind of rehash what Davante Adams has done for you so far this season. Week 1 versus Minnesota, 17 targets, 14 receptions, 158 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. Week 6 versus Tampa Bay, 10 targets, 6 receptions for 61 yards. Fine game. It was a blowout. It was a bit of an awkward game, all things considered, but still the targets were there, right? And then we see this game versus Houston. 16 targets again, 13 receptions for a 196 and 2. Like, yo, Davante Adams is a fucking machine. And he's a different kind of machine, right? Because Julio Jones is the yardage king. Michael Thomas is the target king. But Davante Adams does everything. He legitimately might be, him and DeAndre Hopkins, I would say, 1 and 2 are the most complete wide receivers in the NFL. The targets are there. They have great hands. They get yards. And they find their way into the end zone, right? Davante Adams is a guy you can pretty much book for 10 touchdowns every single year. So I love Davante Adams more than anything. He's one of my favorite wide receivers. We need to put some respect on his name and really just truly just put that flag down and say this guy is one of, if not the best wide receivers in the NFL. He is so good. One more thing I want to touch on here. I expect Aaron Jones to be back next week. He was out this week with the calf injury that he suffered on Thursday. He was a game-time decision, and that would have been an absolute nightmare if he played. You went through and you played him, and he just didn't see any of the work. So I'm glad that they did decide to rule him out, so we knew what we had to do as fantasy managers. But then also I want to just talk about Robert Tonyan real quick. This is now back-to-back games with disappointing performances from him after that great game versus the Falcons. I'm probably not going to continue to roll the dice on Tonyan. Maybe it really was just one of those things that we had to wait on with Devontae Adams being out, and that's where his value came from. But all things considered, the schedule going forward isn't awful. You look at Minnesota next week, then San Francisco, Jacksonville, Indianapolis, Chicago, Philadelphia. So there are a few great games there where you could probably start him. But all things considered, you might be done with Robert Tonyan, just trying to figure out what that value is going to be. Obviously, he plays on this great offense, so there is always an upside for him. But over the course of the past few games, he really has let you down, and both those games were with Devontae Adams back on the field. Maybe there's a correlation there, maybe there isn't. On the other side, with the Texans, one, Deshaun Watson. Yes, it was garbage time. I don't really care. Deshaun Watson is so good. Deshaun Watson is so good for fantasy. He runs. He has a great arm. He has a solid enough cast of weapons. Obviously, it's different without DeAndre Hopkins there, but he makes guys better. And just the talent around him is still fine for him to be productive for fantasy football. David Johnson continues to be my favorite option for your running back 2 spot if you roster him. He is so consistent, and the respect isn't there yet, and I just don't understand why. I really don't understand why. Every single week, it's 15 carries. Every single week, it's 55 rushing yards. Every single week, it's a touchdown. Every single week, it's 4 receptions. Every single week, it's 25 receiving yards. The stat line for David Johnson on a week-to-week basis, it's like this. It's so flat. It's so steady. It's so consistent. And it makes me just really happy because this was a guy this offseason where you were able to get him in that 4th, 5th, 6th round range where you probably already had 2 running backs at that point. So the fact that he's your 3rd running back is spectacular. And even if he's your 2nd, again, he's my favorite guy to be my running back too because I know what I'm going to get from him week in and week out. I'm really happy that David Johnson is having the success that he's had so far with the Texans. Will Fuller continues to ball out yet again. Just super impressive from him. I've already apologized to him multiple times over the course of the past handful of weeks. But Brandon Cooks is who I really want to talk about right now. You need to go get Brandon Cooks in every single league. Don't overpay. Don't hear what I'm not saying. Do not overpay for Brandon Cooks. But Brandon Cooks, the respect for him is not there. And he's putting it together. And he's doing it on the basis of high target volume, yardage, and touchdowns. It's been really impressive to see Cooks reemerge as a part of this offense coming over from that trade from the Rams this offseason. And honestly, if you want to just look, I don't know if I have this in front of me. There we go. Yes, I do. So I'm going to read you off these things in case you forgot about Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks has been a top 15 wide receiver 4 times in the past 5 seasons. Just one more time to read those finishes off for you. 13, 9, 15, 13. And then last year, the dud year with the Rams, 62. He was also injured, I believe. It is what it is, right? But in this offense that is re-energized and is putting up points, he is a guy that you should be able to buy low on in a way where you're not going to overpay and you should be able to get enough back to where you're able to put him into your lineup week in, week out. If you're bleeding at wide receiver, he's a guy who I would target because he's not going to cost as much as some of these other big names are going to. And that, to me, makes him a really appealing piece to try and go after because those target numbers are there. Again, the past 3 weeks, 12, 9, 9. The receptions, 8, 9, 7. The yardage, 160, 68, 60, and 2 touchdowns. It's been really great for Brandon Cooks after Bill O'Brien has been terminated by the Texans. I'm really excited for Cooks going forward the rest of the season. That is all I got for this game, though. I'm going to take some water and, of course, get back to the next one. Gibson had an awesome day, had an awesome-ass day today. Says, hail to the Redskins. Yeah, I mean, he did. I already talked about that game already, so just to kind of fill you in on what I said. The issue with Gibson, it's not a Gibson problem. It's a coaching staff problem. He is by far and away the best running back on the team. Obviously, you watched the game. You know what he looked like today. And the fact that he's still only getting 47% of the snaps, it's disgusting. It makes no sense. It is illogical. When Gibson is on the field and when Gibson is involved, it gives them a better chance to win. And the fact that they are still running out Peyton Barber 10 times a game, and they're still giving J.D. McKissic all the passing work, it makes no sense. And it's so frustrating because basically what Antonio Gibson comes down to now at this point for fantasy, essentially, and obviously he had 128 rushing yards today, so that kind of changes this a little bit. But by and large, Antonio Gibson, if he doesn't fall into the end zone, you're probably going to be disappointed with him from a fantasy football perspective, and that's just really frustrating because we know what he can be because he's shown it already multiple times this season. You give him the ball, and he is an absolutely electric playmaker in that way. All right. Anything else here? What time we got? It's 10:20. Okay. I started streaming at what, like 9? Next game that we're going to cover. Oops. So next game we're going to cover is going to be Detroit and Atlanta. What a game this was. Let's pull this back up. Anything else? Anything else from the chat here? We good? No other comments, questions? Comments, questions, concerns. Tell me about your fantasy matchup for the week. Are you winning? Are you losing? I'm currently getting ready to cry, and it makes me so sad. Is this the second? I want to actually go through my text real quick because I have a feeling that this happened last week too. Or not last week, excuse me. When I was facing my opponent earlier this season. What week was that? Yep. No, wait. Yes. Yeah, I'm looking at my text. And this was Monday, September 21st. I sent a text at 6:41 to my opponent, who I'm also facing this week, that I said I'm tilting so hard. And then I've sent GG at 8:43. And then the response I got was, I was taking the exam, but holy shit. Bravo, truly. I'm literally speechless. I thought I was done. Like Gone Forever, Aaron Hernandez style. Makes me feel better that makes me feel better that I know it didn't matter if I started Traquan. Yeah, so this is literally, woo! I've blown back-to-back leads to my opponent both times this season. That makes me feel really good because, actually, brutal in all honesty. I'm humbled for the playoff. Well, I actually want to do a whole press conference series at one point, where basically after every single week now, I would just do a press conference recapping what my teams did. I think that'd be a really fun series to start, but I digress. Let's get into this next game, shall we? The next thing that we're going to be talking about is going to be the Detroit Lions taking on the Atlanta Falcons in an absolute thriller. Detroit defeats Atlanta by a final score of 23-22. The Lions, improved to 3-3 on the year, and the Falcons fall to 1-6. Matt Stafford was 25 of 36 for 340 yards and a touchdown. DeAndre Swift, 9 carries, caught 4 passes for 48 total yards and a score. Kenny Golladay hauled in 6 of 7 targets for 114 yards, and TJ Hawkinson secured the game-winning touchdown as time expired. Hauled in 5 catches, 6 targets for 59 yards, and DeAndre Swift, the season is coming. 48% of snaps, his season high on the year. On the other side, Matt Ryan, 31 of 42 for 338 yards and 1 touchdown. Todd Gurley, 23 carries, caught 2 passes for 82 total yards and a touchdown, including a godsend score where he was supposed to fall down at the 1 and instead stumble into the end zone with 1 minute left on the game clock in the fourth quarter. Calvin Ridley continues his dominance, catching 5 of 7 targets for 69 yards and a score, and Julio Jones in his second game back off of injuries continues to dominate as well, catching 8 of 9 targets for 97 yards, and also Todd Gurley is a touchdown machine. So let's talk about this game real quick. Few things to note. The biggest thing is I'm disappointed. And the reason why I'm disappointed in this game is because I said, as I normally do, start everybody against Detroit and start everybody against the Falcons. So this was a dream matchup for me. I thought that this game was a game that easily could have gone into the 40s in scoring, and unfortunately we settled in the 20s. Matt Ryan only having, it looks like, about 16 fantasy points this game was not great by any means. 16 isn't terrible. It's not going to kill you, but you would have loved to see more from him in a game that had a really great matchup against the Lions. Stafford was in the same ballpark as well. That late touchdown obviously saves his fantasy day, but still, the expectations that I had for this game were up here, and it finished down here. I want to talk about the Lions real quick and DeAndre Swift and Adrian Peterson. Again, DeAndre Swift's season is here. It's now been 2 weeks since the bye, and he's getting the majority of the work. He had 46% of the snaps this week, which was his season high so far, coming off of 38% last week where he had 14 carries. The carry counts weren't there, and the receiving work still really wasn't there, but still you can see that they are really trying to get him more and more involved. I believe he had a few big plays called back due to penalties, which is unfortunate, but even still, when he's gotten the ball, he just makes moves and he makes cuts that are, quote, shifty and swifty. To where you can just tell, like, he is by far and away the best running back on this team. We love Adrian Peterson, and we love what he's done for the Lions, holding down the fort for them so far. But it's very, very clear that DeAndre Swift is the guy. So if you have a roster spot, or not even that, honestly, but if you can cut bait with somebody and you can pick up DeAndre Swift who might be on your waiver wire, you need to do so immediately, because Swift's season is coming, and it is coming quick. And you need to be able to have him on your roster now so you don't have to spend up for him even more later on, and then also just not even have him later on potentially, right? Because it felt like that the breakout game was last week. So if you're able to pick him up after this week, you absolutely have to do it, because I don't know how many more opportunities you're going to get in order to roster him. Kenny Golladay, great game. Marvin Jones, great game. I think that really was the big thing here. The only players that really disappointed, all things considered, were the quarterbacks, right? Like, Swift was fine. Todd Gurley was great. Kenny G was great. Ridley was great. Julio was great. Marvin Jones was great. Hawkinson was great. So when I said start everybody, theoretically, it worked out pretty well, all things considered. And of course, the quarterbacks didn't absolutely kill you. We just had such high expectations for them in this matchup. But then going over, actually, I want to talk about TJ Hawkinson real quick, because TJ Hawkinson is actually seeing consistent targets in a way that I don't think a whole lot of people realize, because he's not this well-known hot commodity by any means. But Hawkinson is pretty consistently seeing about 5 targets, hauling in 4 of them for essentially 55 yards every single game, and that's a great baseline for a tight end at some level. And obviously, because of his size and the fact that he is 6'5", he does have the opportunity for touchdowns. He's now scored touchdowns in 4 out of 6 games, so he is being looked at in the red zone. Just something to keep an eye on, as we know that tight end is currently a wasteland. So if you're able to pick up TJ Hawkinson, by all means, go ahead and do so. If you lost Zach Ertz, he's a great replacement. If you're just done with whoever your tight end is, maybe it's Evan Ingram, Hawkinson is a great add for you in that way. Moving over to the Falcons, the only thing that I really want to say here, people need to owe me an apology. People need to owe me an apology. And the other person that they need to owe an apology to is Todd fucking Gurley. Because this shit was so damn obvious that Todd Gurley was going to be incredible for fantasy football, and nobody was willing to do it. Not a soul was willing to give Todd Gurley a chance. Besides me. Hello. I had Todd Gurley ranked, I believe, as my running back 12 on the year. I was bought in. It was so clear, and the reason why it was so clear was, one, this Falcons offense. Like, that's the big thing, right? This Falcons offense is a high-powered machine that can score and just move the ball so easily and so effectively that Gurley was bound to get red zone work and fall his way into the end zone. Very similar to what he did last year with the Rams. Gurley currently leads the NFL in red zone rushing attempts. Secondly, they gave him a 1-year contract. Yes, he has the bad knee. I don't give a shit. They gave that man a 1-year deal, and you expected them to not run him into the ground? Oh my god. How dumb can you be? The writing on the wall for Todd Gurley was so obvious. It baffled me all offseason. I saw Todd Gurley going in the 6th round. Are you kidding? Are you serious? Todd Gurley last season finished as a running back 14 on a bad Rams offense. Still got into the end zone 8 times. And you weren't going to give him the time of day on an Atlanta Falcons offense that was better than the one he played in last year. Look, dude, that's on you. 100% on you. I'm stoked. As someone who banged the drum for Todd Gurley all offseason, as somebody who drafted Todd Gurley with my 3rd round draft pick because I wanted to go running back, and I reached to grab Todd Gurley. I reached for him. I feel so good. I feel so fucking good. Todd Gurley right now is currently running back 9 in standard, 14 in PPR. I don't know if that's updated for this week, but if it hasn't, it's going to. And he's going to jump into the top 10 with this 20-point performance. Let me read you off Todd Gurley's numbers and half-point scoring so far throughout this season. 12.7, 6.1, 13.7, 18.8, 23 flat, 8.2, and 20.2. Need I say more? Todd Gurley, ladies and gentlemen. Todd fucking Gurley. It's what he does. He scores touchdowns, and he's very, very good. What more can you want, right? So that's it. I'm happy. I'm very, very satisfied with my Todd Gurley prediction for the year. And I think that's it for this game, right? Calvin Ridley, still really fucking good. Julio Jones, still really fucking good. I'm still riding the wave of Matt Ryan if I got him, because those two guys are incredible, and they are continuing to use Todd Gurley more and more in the passing game. So I'm still all in. I'm still bought in to all the Atlanta Falcons pieces. What else do we got? Is there anything else? What game are we moving on to next? We got we're moving into the late game window. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, cool. We've been going for an hour and a half now at this point. I'm scared to pull up my phone now, and I'm scared to look at my score. And your man's is still only up by 1.7. Hell yeah. What an absolutely brutal week for me. So here's the thing that I need you guys to know about this matchup currently and why I'm talking about it so much. First off, I'm facing my league rival in this match. My league rival last year I beat him in week 3 off the back of Calvin Ridley on Sunday night versus the Eagles. You guys might remember that. It was one of the first games of the year. Calvin Ridley goes crazy on Sunday night versus Philadelphia. So I beat him then. And then in week 13 I beat him because the way that our playoff format worked last year was it was top 2 teams from each division make the playoffs, then second best teams, and then the wild card spots were determined based off of total points for, because my Dynasty League is based around rewarding scoring, because you can't play fantasy defense. I've talked about this time and time again. So then I beat my opponent in week 13 last year by 0.6 points. So literally 0.6 of a point in order to make the playoffs. So this rivalry is a full-blown thing now. This week, I think it's week 2 or week 3, I blow a lead to him. And then this week again, I do the exact same thing. It is wild. And not only do I blow a lead to him, but he is currently 4 points ahead of me in our playoff standings. And what I mean by points now at this point, what I mean by points in this scenario is, I think I've talked about this once or twice. The way that my dynasty scoring format works in terms of playoffs, you get 2 points for a win and 1 point for finishing in the top 5. So that gives you a collective opportunity of 39 points earned throughout the season. The top 6 teams, whoever has the highest playoff point totals, that's who makes the playoffs. I'm currently 4 points back from my division lead. If you win your division, you get a first round bye. And of course, this gentleman is my opponent and also my division leader, and I'm 4 points back. And if I were to beat him this week, it would have been a 3-point swing. So I would only be 1 point back, and now it looks like I'm going to be 7 points back after this week. I am upset, I am angry, and I am absolutely tilting right now. But it's fine. It's okay. I'm still going to make the playoffs. My team's still good enough to make the playoffs no matter what. Essentially, I'm pretty much guaranteed. I'm pretty much locked in at this point. It would take some sort of epic collapse for me not to. But my God, it is not pretty for your mans right now. I mean, Kenyon Drake, 9 carries, 20 yards, 1 reception for 7 yards. Get it together, dude. Get it together. I mean, Rush just going ham. Like, obviously, that's gonna do me in. But I mean, I'm more so upset that I'm looking at my roster right now, and I always feel like I'm wasting games if I lose, right? Because how many times can you reliably count on Antonio Gibson throughout this season? So I wasted a good Antonio Gibson game. I wasted a great T. Higgins game. I wasted a 24-point performance from A.J. Brown. So just seeing these high point totals across my entire team, knowing that I'm going to lose, it really is disheartening, and I'm bummed out about it. So I'm going to probably talk about that, shoot him a text later on tonight, and I'll probably bitch him out. But it's fine. It's fine. I promise I'm okay. Alright, let's keep going here with this next matchup. We got 4 of these, right? One more thing here. Alright. So the next game that we're going to talk about is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Las Vegas Raiders, and this game was pretty much all Buccaneers all game. Tampa wins by a final score of 45-20. The Tampa Bay Bucs improved to 5-2 on the season, and the Raiders dropped to 3-3. Tom Brady, get used to it, because Tom Brady is back. 33 completions on 45 pass attempts for 369 yards and 5 touchdowns, including a rushing score. He was on fire in this game. Ronald Jones, 13 carries, 34 yards, and a score. Leonard Fournette in his first real action back from that ankle injury, 11 carries, 50 yards, also caught 6 of 7 passes for 47 yards. Chris Godwin, the big beneficiary here, 9 targets, 9 receptions for 88 yards, and a score. He played fantastic in this game. On the other side with Vegas, Derek Carr, 24 of 36 for 284 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Josh Jacobs really did struggle in this game. 10 carries, 3 receptions for 31 total yards. Nelson Aguilar balled out, though, for the Raiders. 9 targets, 5 receptions for 107 yards and a touchdown. And, of course, Darren Waller always comes through. 9 targets, 6 receptions for 50 yards and a score. I believe that Derek Carr is entering a weekly streaming option. More on that in just a little bit. And for the Buccaneers, Leonard Fournette played 55% of the team's snaps. So we got a few things to talk about here. The first one being Tom Brady. He's done this multiple times already this season where he is just lighting teams on fire. You look at some of the point totals so far this season, 25, 36, and then 40. So this really is nothing new that we've seen so far from Tom this year. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, all things considered, but obviously adding Antonio Brown this week is going to be incredible for him. I still believe Antonio Brown is a super talented wide receiver. So now you have a wide receiver core of Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, and Rob Gronkowski at the tight end position. You have Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones. This team might average 40 points the rest of the way. It's going to be really impressive. And Tom Brady's floor now and his ceiling just go up another notch with the addition of Brown, with the resurgence of Rob Gronkowski, who I guess we can talk about right now. Gronk is consistently seeing 7 targets a game now. You look at his past 3 games, 6, 8, 8, and the receiving yards are there as well, essentially averaging 60 receiving yards a game. Obviously, he's a monster touchdown threat as well. And I think what the Bucs did was really smart with Gronk. They took their time with him, getting him reacclimated with the game of football, taking a year off, learning a new playbook, learning a new system, and really just getting back into game shape. And now here he is, back of the old Rob Gronkowski, in all honesty. If you lost Zach Ertz, go get Gronk, because there's a chance that he is on your waiver wire still, and he is a great option for your team rest of season. I've really done a nice 180 turn on Gronk because he's been proving it for the past 3 weeks to be a consistent tight end option. However, we need to talk about this running backfield. It's not great. In fact, I'm very, very concerned. We've seen Ronald Jones the past handful of weeks without Leonard Fournette be an absolute superstar. We saw 3 straight games of 100-plus rushing yards, and in a matchup versus the Raiders, he was destined to have another great game. But Leonard Fournette came back, and what we've seen when Fournette and Ronald Jones are on the field at the same time is that this backfield is an absolute shit show. We got Ronald Jones with 13 carries. We got Fournette with 11, but also 6 receptions. What are you supposed to do here? We know that one person is supposed to be valuable if there was only one of them, right? The running back in this offense is supposed to be great, but there's 2. And that makes this a nightmare of a backfield to try and figure out and navigate. We saw week 1, it was Ronald Jones. Week 2, it was Leonard Fournette. Week 3, it was Ronald Jones. And then Fournette gets injured, and then it's Ronald Jones. And now we see it here, and it was actually both of them this game. They were both fine, all things considered. Fournette finished with 12.7, and Jones finished with 10.1. So they were both fine for you this week. But this is not something I want to navigate going forward. I'm not excited. I'm very, very worried. One of the things I'm already trying to consider doing is I already have deals in my head right now. I'm trying to trade Ronald Jones. I don't want to be a part of this roller coaster. Ronald Jones is great when he gets the work. If he doesn't, you're hoping and you're praying. And that's what I'm fearful of right now. 13 carries, obviously it's still fine. It's not awful by any means. But knowing that he is only on the field now at this point for 45 to 50% of the snaps now, it's concerning. They're clearly using Leonard Fournette in the passing game. They've done this twice now at this point. I just got a lot of concerns about this backfield. I'm trying to shop Ronald Jones if I can. You definitely probably could still, just coming off of it's now 4 straight games now of double-digit fantasy points. So the value for him is there, and you should be able to sell him for a nice piece in return, and that's something that I would absolutely try and do. I know for a fact my team, again, I feel like I need a dominant wide receiver 1. So one of the things I'm going to try and do, I'll package Ronald Jones and a wide receiver in order to get that wide receiver that I need. I think that's something that a lot of people can probably consider doing. You package Ronald Jones in another piece, and you just try and upgrade. You use the leverage of the production of what Ronald Jones has done so far in order to try and upgrade a position of need for your roster. Moving over to the Raiders, Derek Carr has put together a nice string of games, and he just has weapons, right? The weapons aren't spectacular by any means, right? Darren Waller is Darren Waller is great. Josh Jacobs is very good. But we look at the wide receiver core outside of that, right? Henry Ruggs, a little bit unproven, very, very good downfield. Ruggs had a fine game. Wasn't great, but like in real life, he played well. I felt like compared to fantasy. But then you got Nelson Aguilar, you got Hunter Renfrow, and these guys really just complement what Derek Carr can do. They make Derek Carr play better. They make Derek Carr play more aggressive. And an aggressive Derek Carr is a good Derek Carr. So that to me elevates Carr to this tier of streamable options to where you're able to stream him on a week in, week out basis essentially. Obviously depending on matchup more so than anything. But even if you just need a spot start, maybe due to a bye week or an injury, I think you can do worse than Derek Carr on a week-to-week basis. Other than that, don't have a whole lot to add. Nelson Aguilar seeing 9 targets is interesting, but even still, besides that, you look at his target totals 1, 3, 4, 2. That was the main issue with Aguilar, is that he was always touchdown dependent. I don't expect this volume to be consistent. I really think this was just a product of the game itself and of the Bucs trailing all game. But ultimately, I'm waiting and I'm seeing with Nelson Aguilar. I just want to see it maybe for one more week, see what's going on there, and hopefully if this continues to be a nice trend, he can be a late waiver wire add during the later weeks of the season. With Henry Ruggs, this is just what you're going to get with him. It's going to be low target totals, but you're hoping for the big play. He has the ability to take one touch and take it to the house, which is wonderful. But what happens if you don't get that? That's the question that needs to be asked. And that's the question that I think is honestly a bit concerning. A bit concerning because he's always been this one-touch king, right? If you guys recall, I've talked about the stats time and time again. 25% of Henry Ruggs' catches in college went for touchdowns. It takes one play for him. So when you throw him in your lineup, you're hoping and you're praying that it just take one to the house. And what you get if you don't get that is the scary question for Ruggs going forward. And it's one of the reasons why I'm always going to have some level of hesitancy with putting him into my lineup. But I love the potential of him week in and week out. Other than that, not a whole lot else to add for this game. Again, just a bad game for Josh Jacobs. I'm not too concerned about it. Always going to start him. And then Darren Waller was great for you at the tight end position. Just one of the best tight ends in the NFL. All right, what do we got next? We got San Francisco and New England. Okay, cool. There we go. I'm scared to go look at my score now. Honestly, I'm very, very scared. Do I want to? We're gonna do it. I'm just gonna keep giving you guys updates as to what's going on in my leagues. I'm still injured. And then the other thing too, right? I always talk about running back depth. Always. I say running backs win you championships, and it's why it's why it takes me a lot to commit to trading a running back. And just knowing that Carson is hurt right now, and I'm able to easily replace him with Antonio Gibson, Myles Gaskin, LaMichael Pirine, Joe Mixon when he gets back and healthy. That gives me so much confidence that I lose Carson, and Carson is probably my best running back. In fact, I know for a fact he is. But just being able to supplement him so easily really makes me happy because I know I can navigate this situation with ease now at this point. And oh my God, I hate Russell Wilson. I hate him. I hate him so much. So trash. I gotta text my opponent. For the second time this season. Wait, when did... I'm curious now. Because I have a feeling... Whoa, why can't I... I want to look at my schedule. Was that week 2? That was week 2. Russ was the Thursday. No, Russ was the Sunday night game week 2, because that was the game versus New England. What was the Monday night game? Was that it? I want to pull this up. NFL week 2 schedule. Okay. That's what it was. That was the Kamara game versus Oakland. Versus Vegas. Where Kamara went crazy for 34. Oh, so much joy. So much joy. And again, that was the Aaron Jones game where Aaron Jones had 43 and I lost. My goodness. Oh, that is brutal. Absolutely brutal. For the second time this season, I have blown a lead to you. Fun times had for all. Good God. Alright, let's keep going with this game, shall we? And let's see. I gotta pull this up. Cool. So let's get to the 4 o'clock slate now, and we're going to kick off with one of the most crazy and wild games of the afternoon slate. The San Francisco 49ers traveling across the country to Foxborough to take on the New England Patriots. And it was all 49ers all the time. San Fran wins by a final score of 33-6. They improved to 4-3 on the season, and the Patriots drop to 2-4. Jimmy G, 20 of 25 for 277 and 2 interceptions. Jeff Wilson, 17 carries, 112 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He did leave this game with a calf injury. There was no Raheem Mostert in this game due to his ankle sprain. He was placed on IR. And Jerick McKinnon was non-existent for some reason. To be determined, to be reasoned, who knows? We'll talk about it in just a moment. Brandon Ayuk, 6 receptions, 7 targets for 115, and Deebo Samuel, 5 for 5 for 65 yards. Samuel unfortunately left this game with a hamstring injury, and there is no timetable for his return. With the Patriots, you see those 2 names? Yeah, honestly, only one of them should be there. Cam Newton, 9 of 15 for 98 yards and 3 interceptions. Damian Harris, 10 carries, 1 catch, 58 yards. Cam Newton, what the fuck? I'm pissed off again. I'm pissed off all over again. In between each of these videos, I'm talking to the chat. I'm streaming this if you didn't know. Again, of course, subscribe down below so you never miss any of my live streams. I had to play Cam Newton this week because Lamar Jackson was on a bye. Cam Newton is my backup quarterback in my Dynasty League. And again, I was up 40. I was up 40 in the driver's seat going into 4 o'clock. And Cam Newton just gave my opponent a Christmas present. There's no, you see this box? You see this box? Just a big 0. Just a big 0 on it. I don't know. I don't know. It was the worst game I've ever seen Cam play. What? I'm still trying to figure it out. Because this is now back-to-back weeks where the Patriots have looked so bad. But this was something unparalleled. I have no I have no words for it. I really don't. Nobody played well for this team. They looked uninspired. Cam was throwing balls literally into the ground, airmailing guys by 10 yards. It wasn't pretty. It was atrocious. And just the fact that I had to start Cam this week, I didn't feel great about it, all things considered, but I know that the rushing upside with Cam is always there, right? So that is one thing that always gives me comfort, but he didn't even have that. And then when he threw that third interception, after finally reaching 3 fantasy points in the third quarter, it was a bummer. There's no other words to describe it. Going into a matchup that I was in where I'm facing my rival in my Dynasty League and being up 40, knowing I'm still facing Russell Wilson tonight, Robert Woods, and the Rams kicker, even though I did have Carson and Kenyon Drake, I needed to keep my foot on the fucking gas. Like, you need to go, you need to ram this down your opponent's throat, and you cannot let up. And I was facing Tyreek Hill and Phillip Lindsay in the 4 o'clock slate as well. So that was another reason why I needed to continue to put the pressure on and not let up. And Cam, just with the Christmas present of a fucking lifetime, gives my opponent a 0, and I get addicted in the process. I don't want to talk about the Patriots anymore. We'll probably talk about them in the preview for this week, but obviously we're going to. But what you do with any of the Patriots, I'm not trying to start any of them. I was saying that going into this week, but even still, like now with Cam being dead, yeah, I'm not trying to start Cam anytime soon. I'll leave it at that. But then going over to the 49ers, Jimmy G, bad game for him. We got a pretty standard Jimmy G game. A lot of yards, really didn't find his way into the end zone, and of course the 2 interceptions. It's not going to put together a great fantasy game for you, all things considered. What the hell happened to Jerick McKinnon? Can we talk about this for a second? McKinnon, last time Raheem Mostert was out. 14 carries. And now Raheem Mostert's out again, and he only gets 3, right? Like, this is when we were supposed to start Jerick McKinnon. And they give the ball to Jeff Wilson 17 times. Wilson falls into the end zone 3 times. Wilson has 112 rushing yards. Jermichael Hasty, 9 carries, 57 yards. Like, if you started Jerick McKinnon, I'm sorry. I'm not going to apologize for saying that you should start McKinnon because all the data made sense that you should have. We just got Shanahan. That's it. We got Shanahan. If you know anything about what Kyle Shanahan does on offense, it's basically this revolving door of running backs, and we never know what's going to happen with them. We got Shanahan as who was it? As Marcus Grant points out on Twitter, the Shanahanigans, which I think is great, and I would love to steal that from him. We just got bamboozled. It is what it is. Going over to the receiving core though here, Deebo Samuel leaving this game with a hamstring injury, super fucking unfortunate. Basically, just makes a nice play, then slides out of bounds, and he just immediately grabs that hamstring. Worked his way to get back from that Jones fracture in his foot to now gets the hamstring injury. We don't know how long he's going to be out. I'm going to anticipate he misses multiple weeks. It did not look good for him. But Brandon Ayuk continues to rise. He continues to be more and more involved. He continues to be used in a variety of different ways. And his comfort in this offense continues to increase as well. Brandon Ayuk might be a guy that you need to pick up, like, right now. Like, right now, you need to go get Brandon Ayuk. Like, for example, okay? We got 8 targets, 5, 6, 3, 7, 5, 2, 3, 2, 6, and then 70 yards, 44, 115. So we've seen Ayuk kind of put these games together. Then also there's the rushing ability as well that he's had. Just being able to get the ball in that way, just with design rush attempts. So I like Brandon Ayuk in that way, right? The Shanahan system, for as much shit I just gave him for the revolving door of running backs, he is super creative with the way that he uses Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, and we have to account for that going forward with Brandon Ayuk. And he's just a guy that we need to have on the radar. Pick him up if you have the roster space for him, because he can be a guy that if Deebo continues to miss, and as Ayuk becomes more and more comfortable in this offense, Ayuk's going to go like this. And you need to get him while you can right now. Other than that, George Kittle, down game for him. is what it is. Again, none of the tight ends really played well this week, all things considered. So he probably didn't hurt you at the end of the day. But I think that's it for this game. Not a whole lot else to add here. Again, just Cam Newton. What are you doing, man? What are you doing? All right, we're going to go to the next game now. We got the Jags. And, oh, well, this is going to be fun to talk about. But I want to go back, and I need more water. Any questions in chat? I forgot I was muted. Sorry. Let's see. So Russ just threw an interception. Shout the fuck out to him. So Russ throws an interception. I'm currently up. Let's see. I'm essentially up 2. I still have the Rams defense. I'm facing Robert Woods. I know for a fact. Yeah, this shit's gonna be so fucking close. This is going to be so damn close. The big kicker, I think, is going to be the fact that I'm also facing his kicker. One of the things that really gives me confidence is the fact that Jared Goff historically versus Chicago is awful. I mean, really, really bad. So that is one thing that gives me hope. Is this game in? Where's this game being played at? Is it at Chicago? Fuck, it's a home game. Oh, that stinks, because that game is at Chicago. There is no way in hell that Jared Goff plays well. What a bummer. What a bummer. Is it? Or can I get a pick 6 tomorrow night? Can I speak that into existence? All right, let's keep going here. Up next, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on this. Oh, God. I was going to say the San Diego Chargers. That is not it. I was thinking, did I even move this? I did. Okay. As I was saying that, I was like, did I change the graphic on that side of the screen? Where are my scores at over here? All right. I'm ready to roll now at this point. Up next, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. So let's just dive right in, shall we? The Chargers and Justin Herbert specifically secures his first win as the quarterback of an NFL team. The rookie out of Oregon put on a show yet again, in all honesty, right? He does it time and time again so far in 2020. The Chargers defeat the Jags by a final score of 39-29. The Chargers improve to 2-4, and the Jags fall to 1-6. Gardner Minshew, 14 of 27 for 173 and 2. James Robinson continues to show why he's been the pickup of the year. He has been so damn good. Robinson, 22 carries, caught 4 passes for 137 total yards and 2 touchdowns. DJ Chark, the struggles continue. The targets are there, but the production isn't. 7 targets, 1 catch for 26 yards, and Laviska Shenault, 3 receptions for 44 yards. There's some rumors swirling that Gardner Minshew may be benched after their bye week next week. On the other side with the Chargers and Los Angeles, Justin Herbert, the man, the myth, the legend. 27 of 43 for 347 yards, 66 rushing yards, and 4 touchdowns, including a rushing score. Justin Jackson, 5 carries, 5 receptions for 55 total yards. Josh Kelly, 12 carries, 5 receptions for 54 total yards. Keenan Allen, 13 targets, 10 receptions for 125 yards, and Justin Herbert has the 4th most points by a rookie quarterback in fantasy football history, dating back to 1950. He has been incredible this season. As always, let's start off with the Jags, and then we'll move over to the Chargers. I need to talk about Gardner Minshew yet again because Minshew continues to do it. He continues to fucking do it. Yes, there's this rumor about him being benched, and there's a chance that he might, in all honesty, right? They're 1-6. They've lost 6 straight games after coming off hot and beating the Colts in week 1. But since then, Minshew hasn't been great. The passing volume continues to be there outside of this game where he only had 27 pass attempts, but they just haven't been winning football games, and it's to no fault of his, really. It's more so the fault of the defense that's given up 30-plus points in 6 straight games. How about that, Doug Marrone? I thought defense was supposed to be your specialty. But obviously when you have Gardner Minshew, things can't be all fine and well. He has had 9 turnovers on the season, 5 interceptions, and 4 lost fumbles. It is what it is. But Minshew, again, for fantasy purposes, doesn't kill you. Like, it's this magical thing that I've been saying. Gardner Minshew with the passing volume, then playing from behind, he's always going to be in the opportunity. He's always going to have the opportunity to score fantasy points. In this game in particular, he puts up 18 for you, which is fine. You'll take that every single day of the week. It's better than Cam Newton 0. Am I right? Okay, so I'm fine with Gardner Minshew going forward. I'd still, like, if he does get benched, it's going to be another brutal blow to the streaming options. Again, we just lost Ryan Fitzpatrick to Tua, and now are we going to lose Gardner Minshew to Mike fucking Glennon? No thanks. Hopefully that's not the case, and hopefully they do ride Minshew out the rest of the way. James Robinson, after the dud that he put up last week, comes back and drops damn near 30 and half point formats. James Robinson, again, just proving to be the pickup of the year. And then as far as the receiving options go, I'm going to say this. You're not going to like it, but I do think it speaks to something, my willingness to admit when I may have gotten something wrong. DJ Chark, I'm ready to jump ship on. I'm ready to do it. I'm too concerned at this point. As much as I love Gardner and as much as I love why the reasonings that make Gardner who he is for fantasy, it hasn't translated to DJ Chark. You look at the past 2 games, 14 targets and 7 targets, great target totals, but 7 receptions and 1. And even then beforehand, 3 targets, 4 targets, like it's just all over the place and it's so inconsistent. And trying to figure out what to make of it is impossible. And again, I like having guaranteed production. I like knowing what I'm going to get from every single one of my players. And because of that, DJ Chark is just a guy who, in redraft specifically, I'm kind of looking to move off of. And in fact, I think one of the things you can do is you can use these target totals to your advantage, and you can go to a league mate and say, hey, do you want DJ Chark? He's had games where he's had 25 fantasy points. In the past 2 weeks, he's had 14 and 7 targets, so he's being targeted. Do you want him? So you can kind of craft your argument around the positives, and then obviously leave out the inconsistencies of him, right? It's all about the art of the trade. The snap percentages are still great. I just don't know what's going on with Chark right now. It doesn't make sense. He should be better than he is. The schedule the rest of the way is difficult. Like, I think that's something that definitely needs to be discussed. He's got Houston, then Green Bay, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Minnesota, Tennessee, and he closes out the year Baltimore, Chicago, Indy. P-fucking-U. Get rid of Chark while you can. It's going to be rough sledding as the season progresses, and then we obviously don't know what the quarterback situation is going to look like in Jacksonville going forward. Chicago too, because they had a quarterback change recently as well. So I'm off DJ Chark now at this current moment in time. Keelan Cole had a dud game. It's what it is. Again, Cole has outscored Chark, and at this point now, it's been 4 out of 6 games where Keelan Cole has outscored DJ Chark. So I'm fine with this. Chris Conley got in the end zone. Doesn't matter. Fantasy irrelevant. Laviska Shenault continues to see increased snaps percentage, which is nice because one of the things that I've said why I'm not comfortable starting him week in week out is because you're banking on 55% of snaps. But in this game, he was up in the 70s, which is nice. So if we can start getting him more and more into that 80% range, that's what I'm comfortable throwing into my lineup. I'm still on a hold for him though. He's been producing well in the limited snaps that he has had, and I'm just waiting for that production to fully go up before I'm confident throwing him into my lineup. Going over to the Chargers though, Justin Herbert. What more can you say? Justin Herbert, not only is he 4th all-time in fantasy points right now for a rookie, he is currently, I believe, this game in particular, he was now number 6 for the highest scoring. Wait, I want to make sure that I had this right. Justin Herbert, it was from Tristan Cockcroft on Twitter, said that. There we go. So, fantasy points by a quarterback in his first 5 NFL starts. Deshaun Watson, Cam Newton, Justin Herbert. Pretty good. You want to keep going? Most fantasy points by a rookie quarterback in a single game. Josh Allen, Russell Wilson, Cam Newton, Justin Herbert. Guys, Justin Herbert's legit. And I've been saying this since he took over. He's looked so good. And he is dominating. He is getting the ball into the end zone. He's moving the ball extremely well. His deep ball it's one of the most beautiful things I think I've ever seen, in all honesty, right? And he's shown off his ability to run the ball a little bit, specifically in this game. I saw even like during the college tape I was watching on him where he had that ability and would use it from time to time, but in this game specifically, it really did come out versus the Jags. He just cooked. It's so fun to watch him play. It just looks effortless with them. It really, really does. So I'm really happy to see him get his first win in the NFL. Moving over to the backfield of the Chargers, it's another one. I'm done. I don't want to play this game. Trying to figure out who's valuable between Josh Kelly and Justin Jackson is not something that I want to be a part of. It's you're throwing darts here at this point. It's another backfield that's an absolute mess. I'm trying to get off of it while I can. You can package one of these guys in a trade and try and upgrade your running back position that way. Maybe you package a DJ Chark and a Josh Kelly, and you just try and upgrade at some level at the running back position. But more and more, we're seeing these running back by committees pop up, and if you don't have a workhorse, you are playing behind the 8 ball because you're going up against guys who are consistently getting 18 carries a game when you're only getting 9, and that is a formula for disaster if you can't get into the end zone to compete with that. So that's my take on the Chargers backfield. Keenan Allen, still spectacular. Mike Williams, dud game, don't really care. Again, Herbert's balling out, which means Williams always has the opportunity for a big game. Hunter Henry, dud game. 2 of the other tight ends scored touchdowns. Like, what can you do? That's just a big middle finger to you who owned and started Hunter Henry. Like, we had Jalen Guyton get into the end zone. We had Virgil Green get into the end zone. We had Joe Reed get into the end zone. Herbert's just really good at throwing guys who they picked up off the street from the practice squad or their third stringers. That's happened multiple times already this season. I believe that Guyton also has a 74-yard touchdown earlier in the year from Herbert. So Herbert just loves to spread the ball around a little bit. Unless your name's Keenan Allen, where you're still getting 13 targets a game and you're going to fly up the wide receiver ranks as the year continues with that target volume. But that is all I have for this game. Let's keep going here. I'm kind of in a rhythm. We got one more game to talk about. I'm probably just gonna end up recording Seattle and Arizona tomorrow night, in all honesty. I want to make sure. Oh God. The word toe drag is all over my timeline right now, and I can only assume that means that Russ just threw another touchdown. This is so fucking stupid. Man tilts live on stream. That's basically all I can think of right now. I just don't. Oh, they took it off the board. Oh my god. All right, let's keep going. We got one more game to knock out. Denver and Kansas City. Cool. Whoops. There we go. All right, let's roll, shall we? The last game that we need to talk about from Sunday, outside of the Sunday night game, is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Denver Broncos in Denver. This game had some snow on the field, and that's obviously going to make playing a little bit more difficult, right? The Chiefs romp the Broncos by a final score of 43-16. Kansas City improves to 6-1 on the year, and Denver falls to 2-4. Patrick Mahomes 15 of 23 for 200 yards passing and a touchdown. Clyde Edwards-Helaire finds his way into the end zone off of 8 carries and 63 total yards. Tyreek Hill, 10 targets, 6 receptions for 55 yards and a score. Le'Veon Bell in his first game as a member of the Kansas City Chiefs saw 33% of the snaps. On the other side with Denver, Drew Lock, 24 of 40 for 254 yards, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. Melvin Gordon, 17 carries, 68 yards, a touchdown, and 2 fumbles, unfortunately, which really did cap his fantasy day for you. And Phillip Lindsay, 9 carries for 79 yards, looked spectacular early on in this game. Unfortunately, did leave it with a concussion. But this game, in all honesty, was just so defensive-based more than anything. If you started the Kansas City Chiefs defense, you know what happened. First off, a pick six. Secondly, let's see. They had a pick six. They had 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, and a kickoff return for a touchdown. So that's basically how this game unfolded for the Chiefs specifically, to where there was no need for Patrick Mahomes to throw for 3 touchdowns. There was no need for Travis Kelce to be highly involved. There was no need for Tyreek Hill to have a monster day or anything like that. It really just was the special teams and the defense taking care of this game. Mahomes again finishes with 1 touchdown and 200 passing yards, so he busted for you comparatively, right? Like, we actually have to say that Pat Mahomes busted for you, which fucking sucks. Tyreek Hill put together a good game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire found his way into the end zone. And then Mecole Hardman had a fine game. If you spun the wheel, he finished with 8 fantasy points. He was actually on track to have a better day. He started off the game red hot. But then because the Chiefs went up so big, there's no need to throw the ball or run any, there's just no need to run your normal offense if you're already just trouncing your opponent so early on in this game. The only thing I want to talk about here with the Chiefs is Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Le'Veon Bell. This game unfolded exactly how I expected it to between these 2 running backs, and that was Clyde was going to see about 70% of the work, and Le'Veon was going to see about 30% of snaps. But unfortunately, the thing that is a little bit different is what the carry counts looks like for each player. Clyde saw 8 carries on 70% of snaps, but Le'Veon saw 6 carries on 30. And that is a big deal because we're so used to seeing Clyde Edwards-Helaire come in and finish with 20 to 25 carries. And that just was not the case in this game, unfortunately. So because of that, we do have to limit our expectations for Clyde. And we were already going to do that to begin with. And the fact that he was able to still get in the end zone was great to see. But what happens going forward, you're still going to start Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And you have the ability now, I think, to start Le'Veon because Le'Veon looked pretty good in the opportunity that he got on the field. But again, if he's only seeing 30% of the snaps, then how confident can you be with that? I do think that number is going to shrink, and that gap is going to shrink. I think eventually it is going to become a 60-40 split. And if they're both getting 12 touches a game, let's say, in this offense, it's okay. I just got done talking about how I'm opting out of the Bills offense with Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. I'm opting out of the Chargers offense with Justin Jackson and Josh Kelly. And it's just because nobody there is good enough to separate themselves from the other. Both of these players are great. and both of these players just on a great offense, I know I can trust them to get things done. So I'm more than willing to go and start both of them because you're just going to continue because this offense can drop 45 on any given night. Obviously, when they're scoring 14 points based sheerly off of their defense and special teams, that creates a little bit of a different dynamic within the game itself. But all in all, I'm totally cool with starting Clyde Edwards-Helaire going forward, and I'm going to have an increased level of confidence with Le'Veon Bell as he continues to get more and more work in this Chiefs offense as well. With the Broncos, Drew Lock had a bad game, just wasn't pretty. That pocket was collapsing left, right, and center. Also doesn't help when you lose 2 fumbles because Melvin Gordon can't hang on to the fucking football and you're playing from behind. It is what it is. Melvin Gordon, speaking of, again, just those 2 fumbles really did limit him. Philip Lindsay's out with that concussion. We don't know how much time he's going to miss. But obviously, it's just another one of those scenarios where we're going to start whoever is the main guy in Denver. And the reason why is because without the other, as we've said with all these running back by committees, you find the workhorses when you can. And we could have one here in Denver, depending on what Philip Lindsay's injury status is going to be with that concussion. And then lastly, as far as the receiving options here go for Denver, I'm not too concerned about anything. Just a bad performance by this team, all things considered. Albert Owegbunam, I can't say his last name. Owegbunam, that's what it is. Had 7 targets, caught all 7 for 60 yards. He was really the only player that played well, but even he didn't eclipse double-digit fantasy points and half-point scoring. Fant had a bad game. Jerry Jeudy had a bad game. Tim Patrick had a bad game. KJ Hamler had a bad game. It wasn't pretty. It just was one of those games for the Denver Broncos. And, of course, those snowy conditions did not help either. So I have no real concerns about the Broncos going forward. I have no concerns about the Chiefs going forward. Let's just keep the boat afloat and just keep sailing, shall we? But that's going to do it for my game recap of this matchup. And I think, in all honesty, I think we're done here. Again, I'm not going to cover the late night game until tomorrow, but I think that's it for this game. Thank you so much for checking out the stream. I don't know how many viewers we still got here, but if you were sticking around for any part of it, I really do appreciate it. This was something new that I wanted to try, just to kind of see what that format could be. I love doing the preview stream this way because I loved answering the questions in between games. Just trying to really figure out the content that works for me and just whatever works best for this channel. There's always a lot of stuff going on. Again, I don't approach this like the traditional fantasy football outlet where they spend Tuesday talking about waivers and Wednesday doing a trade preview show and then Thursday night breakdown. I just like covering the games themselves because it's just a personal thing for me because then it creates more content for all of you guys as well. For me, it's win-win. All things considered. But thank you so much for checking out this live stream. If you missed any of the games, they're going to be up tomorrow on an individual basis, which is one of the reasons why I do it in this format. And then obviously leave a like down below if you enjoyed this stream. Hit that sub so you never miss a video from me. And of course, follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture. I love to answer your start-sit questions, trade offers, and waiver wire pickups for fantasy football and anything else fantasy football related. The DMs are always open. I'm ready to get out of here. My voice is on fire. It is it's 11:22, and I will catch you with the next stream later on in the week. I'm out. Later.